Welcome to 2006 Land Rover Range Rover Sport. All keys lost, key programming. So right now you're just seeing Thomas take the vehicle apart. Pop off the kick panel, there's two clips there. Remove those Phillips screws at the beginning to get rid of the undercarriage panel there. And that is the CEM that we're going after right there. So moving the glove box up and down through this process can really help get the connectors out. They're really big, bulky connectors that are a bit tricky sometimes. So on the front, you have that really big one. That sort of slides out when you get it out. Underneath is a little green one. Locking tab is on the back. And there's two 10mm bolts to remove the CEM from the car. It's nice to have a flex head socket to be able to get it off, just because you're kind of hitting weird angles there. So after you get it loose, you can pull it down a little bit and then move the glove box down, access another big plug on the top there, or two more big plugs, pardon me. And once those are off, then you got to get some plugs off of the rear of the CEM, and these are typically the most difficult. So they're two smaller versions of the one that you see in the front, sort of. Once you pull the BCM down a little bit, you'll be able to access them. There's two right in the middle there, and those are what the plugs look like, a brown one and a green one. So he currently has the plug lock in the unlock position. So when you reinstall it, that's where they should sit, and then you flip them back to latch them in. After you get the CEM out, you remove two Phillips screws from the back, and then you just take trim tools and work your way around it to pop the back cover off. I find it works the best to start where the bolt holes are. So we're cleaning the target area here with conformal coating removal. I like to use the MG Chemicals 8310A. After you get it cleaned off and all that goo's gone off the top of it, just use some isopropyl alcohol to clean up your residue. And now we want to open up our software to see how we're making our connections here. So if you haven't already done this, well, technically you'll do this step first to see where you're going to be making the solder connections and then clean the conformal coating off the board first. But if you look at the left, we have to remove a tiny component. It says remove this component in that diagram. So we are going to find that component on our circuit board, and then we're going to use heat tape to protect the other components around it. So when you're soldering or using a hot air gun, sometimes you can touch other components or get the solder hot on the incorrect components, and things can move around or fall off of the circuit board. That's a huge problem, because you'll probably have to replace a module. So as you can see here, I have the heat tape kind of only letting us see that 103 ohm resistor, and that's the piece that has to come off. So after we remove that, we can hook up our wires. So here I'm just using a soldering gun on both sides to get that tiny little resistor off the board. Make sure you take your time with this, use flux. Be very careful, because if you rip the pads off of the circuit board, then you're screwed at this point. Or you need to be able to know how to repair circuit boards, which is a whole different ball game. So, okay, so now that that is removed, I'll show you what it looks like after I removed it. There's the two little solder points left in the middle there. So there's a little bit of solder there. Some people will clean the solder off. I usually leave it on if it's only like a 2-contact piece like this resistor is. There's only 2 contacts on the board. And now I'll use some more flux, and we're gonna make, this is our pre-work to adding our connections from the wires. So the wires that are gonna attach to the circuit board, you find where they're gonna attach to the circuit board and you just tin them first. So tinning them means just adding extra solder to all the places that you're gonna make connections. So use flux, put some flux on the board, and then just tin them. So add solder so they look like little bubbles to all your solder points that you need to hit. Make sure you have a nice clean soldering gun. Keep cleaning it throughout the process. Okay, so now we always start with the hardest connection first, or I like to do that. Get the hard one out of the way. On this particular connection, I think it's a VCC. It has a resistor on it as well. So I always solder my resistor to it first and then hook up to my spot on the board. So just to protect other things on the board again, I'll usually, if it's close to other components, I'll put some electrical tape down just to kind of protect the point that I'm soldering from touching other points after I'm done soldering it. Sometimes behind the connection it can bridge connections, which basically means you're making unwanted contact on other pieces of the board. So there we got some electrical tape down just to kind of protect the other components behind it where I'm soldering this. Always use flux, that's going to make things a lot smoother and a lot easier. And just tinning that component again, so just adding solder by itself to make it a little fatter, something easier to attach to. And then since there's already solder on my wire and the other part is tinned, they just go together very easy. So give it a little wiggle after you're done, make sure it's on there solid, and now we'll make our other connections. So just follow the diagram for this that you saw a screenshot of earlier. Make sure you're paying attention to what the wires say because they're actually labeled. So on the VVDI PROG, this is the tool that I'm using for this specific one, there's VPP and VCC. Victor Papa Papa and Victor Charlie Charlie. You can't mix those up. So make sure that you're reading the labels because both of those wires are red. So if you hook up the wrong red wire to the wrong part, you're going to fry the circuit board, or could fry the circuit board. Now you can see with these tinned wires and tinned components on the circuit board, look at how easy it is to solder that. You just put the wire up against your little tin part, you touch the soldering gun to it for a second or two, and just hold it there for a second or two while it cools, and it just goes right in and you have nice solid connections. Just struggling with the one contact that needs the other end of the 10 kilo ohm resistor and the wire. Okay, now we got good contact on everything. Always check your work. So even if you have good eyes, pop it under a microscope and just look at things. So you can see that the red wire here is making really good contact. It's not a cold solder, you can wiggle that and it's not just gonna break off easy. Our yellow, blue, and green wires are all making good contacts. And our ground is also making really, really good solder contact. So now we're gonna go into our software. So load the VVDI PROG software now that we have all our connections made. The VVDI PROG is wired to the circuit board. We're clicking on Immobilizer first. Then we're gonna go to Rover, which is short for Land Rover. Which is right, oh, pardon me, it's Land Rover. And then CEM is what we're working on. This is a Range Rover Sport with a CEM. So we're all connected, we click read. Our VVDI PROG is connected to the computer and connected to the circuit board. It's gonna take a second to read the EEPROM data. Make sure you save it right away as the original file. If anything ever goes wrong, you can revert back to this. So now that we've got our file, and you always hit verify on there too. That's one thing I didn't mention. Make sure you verify it. Then we plug in our VVDI2 since we have our EEPROM file that has the immobilizer data and the key information of the car. So now we load VVDI2, click on Transponder Programmer, and then we need to select our vehicle. So if there's any updates, that's going to pop up there. Immobilizer data tool, click on Euro, Land Rover, or Rover in this case. Range Rover is what we're working on, and the CEM. So now we're going to click on Load EEPROM Dump, and that same EEPROM file that we just read with the VVDI PROG, and it shows our keys here. So currently there's 2 keys in the vehicle, and we're going to add a key. It doesn't matter. So with the case of these Land Rovers, we're just going to add a PCF chip for a key that starts at only. So click on PCF 7936, make our dealer key. We're making it in position number 3, and this was successful. So now it's going to create a new file once we hit OK. Save this file because we're going to use the VVDI PROG to write this file back onto the chipboard. So this is our new file with our new key. And now we're going to go back to the VVDI PROG, and we're going to load that new file. So the current file that's on there is the original read. We're going to click on Open, click our new file, and then we're going to write that. So now we've just written our new key into the CEM. Takes a little bit longer to write. There we go. Make sure you verify it always. Click on verify and make sure it's successful. That's going to mean that the file that we loaded onto there was read successfully and there was no corruption or no errors or anything like that. Okay, so we're done with the software now. The hard part's over. We're going to desolder all of our wires off of here. And removing the wires is significantly easier than soldering them on. And now we need to add that little component that I took off. So we'll hit the microscope on this part next, so you guys can see a little closer how it's done. Okay, so you can see my 2 little pads there that still have solder on them. We drop our component in place as close as we can and then just tack it down. So take your soldering gun, get it pretty close to where you want it, and then take your soldering gun and tack it. That's going to melt the solder on the circuit board, melt the solder on the component that I'm reinstalling, the resistor, and it's just going to hold it there so we don't have to worry about it flying off anymore. We can get our pliers out of the way. Now we're going to add some flux. There's the flux, and we're just going to touch those up. So you can see that on the left it's good contact, and on the right it doesn't look like they're quite touching yet. So I have a little bit of extra solder on my soldering tip, and still looks like they're not quite touching. And now we have too much on there. So we have a bridge connection onto that upper component. You just tap it again with the soldering iron, and boom, it fixes things for you. So now we can see that it's connected on both sides. This isn't a great job. I could have spent a little bit more time on it, but it's on there solid. It's making great contact even with that little solder point, and it's going to be fine. I could work on this for another minute or two just to kind of clean it up, but I was in a rush. So now we are reinstalling the back cover onto the CEM. We have our new key file on here, so it should all be plug and play for our new key to start it. Tighten down those Phillips screws. And then after that, we're going to reinstall it into the car. Make sure you get all the plugs back in, the 2 on the back, the 3 on the front, the 1 on the bottom, whatever was in there. Make sure that all those plugs are back in there and are in all the way. If they're not half plugged in, they're solidly plugged in. Okay, so now we have the CEM installed. This is the key that we made through the EEPROM, and the vehicle starts right up. So that's great. The next step is getting this customer remote head keys. You can't add remote head keys through EEPROM on this vehicle. So the method that we just used will only work to make a chip to start the vehicle, not for a remote. So now we have our Autel IM608. We click on Range Rover Sport. This is a 2006, so we're 05 to 09. It automatically populates the blade key, hit OK. And for us to add the keys, you need a working key. If all the keys are lost, then we need to do the EEPROM method that we just did. So we click on Immobilizer, click on Add Key. We have our Learn key in the ignition, and it is turned on. So press OK. Turn off the ignition, press OK. So remove the key and just put it in again without turning the ignition on. So just slide the key in without turning it. So that's going to relearn this key. Now we want to learn our remote head keys. So we click yes. We already have the blades cut on these, and all you do is literally take the new key and slide it in without turning it. Just put it all the way in, hit OK. Learning was successful. We want one more because this customer wanted 2 remote head keys. There's our third key. Put it in. Learning successful. So we don't want to learn anything else. So hit no, turn the ignition on. And now we should have 3 functioning keys. So first key, we already know that starts it. Second key is always test the buttons first to check programming. Both the keys are working on the vehicle. First key started up, no problem. And second key works as well. And that's how you do Range Rover. So one last thing that I want to mention is the reason why this is such a crazy process on this vehicle is specifically because you can't add remote head keys unless you have a working key. So if you're just adding a key to this car, literally what you seen at the end of the video there, where I'm just using the IM608, clicking add key and sliding the keys in, that's how easy it is to add keys to these vehicles. If all the keys are lost, the only way to do that is with dealer software, which you have to pay a bunch of money for, and you have to have a really expensive pass-through tool to be able to plug into the car. Or you can do the EEPROM method, which you just saw. You get a key that starts the vehicle, and then to add your remote head keys, you have a working key already. So you use the working key from the EEPROM method, use that to gain access to the car, and then add your remote head keys and everything will work. If you tried to add the remote head keys into the VVDI2 EEPROM file that we made earlier, they'll start the vehicle, but the buttons on the remotes won't work. It's just however the programming goes through, it doesn't allow the remotes to work. And obviously that's very important. So this is the method that you need to use. Thanks for watching.